memos and letters, they're a big part of business. And the reality is that email is for daily communication on a regular basis. Memos and letters are not necessarily something you send out on a daily basis at all. It's a much more formal process. The meaning tends to be deeper because it is formal, but they still have the aspect of commonality as to how you structure them. You always have an opening, you always have a body, you always have a close. Those three components. Usually they carry non-sensitive information in a memo. You have guide words, like instead of the format of an email, you're going to have a subject line, a date line, an identification of the sender and the receiver. The sender, typically, they can use a letterhead that has the name and address of the organization that they're in. Sometimes you use a thing called a buck slip, which basically is a pad that you have printed up with your name on it, with your position inside the organization. You may attach it to memos, say, please deal with this and everything else. That's a type of a memo. But the aspect of a memo on the internal aspect of it is a little bit different than outside. So you always have a subject line in a memo, you always have a date line, and you want to identify the sender and the receiver. On the subject line, it could be just identification of the memo, just like you do on email. You want to grab the idea, put it right there, so automatically they know exactly what you're talking about. And then you go from that aspect as to how you're going to sit down and set up your opening. So subject line will be a brief thumbnail sketch of what you want to talk about, and then you're going to go in and describe it in your first opening sentence or two, and then you get into the body, which will be the content, and then you want to close it out with some type of course of action that you're expecting to have happen out of it. Bulleted lists are really helpful in the aspect of helping somebody understand what you're looking for. Boom, boom, boom. You have three different ones right there. You don't want to have a huge shopping list. I would recommend only keeping your bullet points at 3 to 5 different bullet points in a memo, just like you would in a presentation. You don't want to overwhelm somebody. You don't want to get people sidetracked with a whole shopping list of 10 or 12 things. You want them really focus in on the key points of what you're trying to sit down and have for that. Memos don't have to close a goodwill statement like in emails, okay? But a closing thought's often necessary to avoid it sounding abrupt or rude in the process. You can always show gratitude at the end. I appreciate your 20 years of service here. Keep it up. I'll be looking forward to this report to be delivered by any given date. Okay, so avoid using those overused expressions in the aspect of some type of cliche. Don't use cliches in your communication. That makes you look trite. The memo sandwich, the message sandwich, whatever it is on a memo, I believe always positive, and then the message, whether it's positive, neutral, negative, and then you close positive. You can even do this in very difficult situations. You can always find something good to say about something that somebody did somewhere, sometime, or the overall aspect of the atmosphere. Find something positive. You always want to have that. It's called the message sandwich or the memo sandwich, but it's still a sandwich. Plus, minus, plus. Most messages convey positive or neutral information, simple request, replies to customers, explanation to coworkers, instructions, direct claims, complaints. Beware of the text. I have to tell you, there's a lot of spelling mistakes that come through on text. I've committed them, and you probably have too, because you're a human, and the text you're sending, you'll have typographical errors, and then sometimes your wonderful cell phone will sit down and correct it for you and make it sound totally different than what you really intended to have. They're poor for record keeping. If you delete the contact, you delete the history of the dialogue. It can also be too casual. Email is the channel most frequently used. Memos are also used as email attachments. They kind of work hand in hand in regards to that. Letters are typically used for external communication, either hard copy or electronic form. And business letters are often the preferred way of delivering messages outside an organization. A letter is a preferred way to deal with a contract. Now we have things like DocuSign and other types of aspects where you can have people sign things over the internet. But here's a reality that I've experienced myself on the practical application. Whenever you send somebody an electronic contract, 50% of the time, I end up having to remind them to sign the electronic contract. Here's the simple reason. A lot of people don't even look in their email. They look at text all the time or whatever medium they have. They avoid the email. And so it sits there, or they put it off. They want to put it off. So a lot of times the digital contract signature, unless they're really desperate to get it signed, will sit in limbo until you remind them for it. In my case, it's almost 50-50 by the time you're done. Letters that go to suppliers, you're delivering a formal communication. A letter is a really good way to deal with that. Government agencies responding with customers and other businesses. Sometimes a form letter gets mailed out to your customers to tell them what's going on. The preferred channel really is the memo, especially when you want to encourage feedback, have a favorable image, make certain you have that from a positive aspect, and put that nice spin in it that you're looking to sit down there and build that bridge so they come back to you on a later date. A letter is a formal communication, provides a formal record, make certain you track everything you send out, and make certain that it's been edited, that it looks very professional. Here's a couple of tricks I want to leave with you. They're not in the text whatsoever. Certified mail is a common practice for closing business deals. It's also a common practice to ignore a certified letter because a lot of times a certified letter is not a good news for you. So you can send a certified letter, especially if you have something difficult, such as an eviction, such as a lien, such as whatever, you're demanding payment of something. If you're going to send that, here is the landlord trick. I learned this before. My story was I had somebody avoiding paying the rent. So I churned myself up in my stomach in the aspect of I was worried to death about a confrontation. So I finally went there and I handed them basically a letter telling them to pay up. And they says, okay, I'll be in tomorrow. That was it. All of my terror and fear and my stomach churning over what I was worried about the confrontation simply didn't happen. If somebody has a legal obligation to do something, you have to sometimes take steps to enforce the contract or do what really is the right thing. Now, and the landlord trick, here's something that happens. People will avoid a certified letter if they have a habit of not paying their bills. They simply won't sign for a certified letter at all. It'll sit at the post office. You get it returned back to you. But if you also send it two ways, identify it in the heading of the letter, set certified mail and first-class proof of mailing, you put those two things in the heading of above, just underneath the date in your aspect of the letter, then you send two different things. You send it certified mail and you send it first-class proof of mailing. It's available at the post office for a couple dollars. Then you send it that way, identify the letter, and that first-class proof of mailing is usually evidence enough to a judge or any type of legal entity that was sent, because the post office will show the letter and they'll also stamp the certified proof of mailing to show that she showed up at the post office and mailed it to the post office. Now all of a sudden it's you and the post office saying it was sent versus the person says, I never got it. Okay, they can pretend that with a certified mail because they're looking for a signature, but the reality of you making certain that they're getting it, send it the two ways. It really works well. Block format is typically used in all business letters. In the block format, the entire text is left aligned, so it's all straight down. It's single space with the exception of double spacing between the paragraphs and a ragged right margin. Here's an example of this in a simple letter. You can see on the left-hand side, there's a totally straight line going all the way down. You'll see a couple things. You'll see the return address, the sender is actually the American Veterinary Hospital. You have that. You also have who is going to. You can see that the date really is the first part of it because this is the letterhead. You put the date, you put who you're sending it to, you put dear, and you put names in there, and then you have your subject line, and boom, you have a letter. Block all the way down on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is that ragged right margin. You don't ever want to have it justified straight on both sides. It throws off the reader. This is the best format in the world of business. You'll also see that the paragraphs are single space, and that's a big thing. Single space paragraphs, double space between the paragraphs. At the very bottom, you go for returns, click, 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 click. Sincerely, put 4 spaces again for a signature, and then you put your name typed in at the very bottom. That's how a regular professional business letter is, and that's an expectation in the world of business as to how to do it. left justified margin, ragged right, leave plenty of space. If you look on the letter here on the example, there's lots of white space around the entire thing, single space paragraphs and double space between paragraphs. So if you want to have that block style, it's the best thing. Most letters automatically come with a margin of 1 to 1.5 inches around the entire thing. So make sure you use that. Usually your computer will be set up with that as well. Business letters are necessary when you need a permanent record, when you want confidentiality, when you want to be formal and sensitive, and then be persuasive. So emails, a good record, easily accessed later. Text can move quickly, much faster than usually email, memos, or letters, but they can be sloppy and they're not all that good for record keeping. Business letters grab the attention since they're very formal, and at times that's good. This is business. Treat it like a business. Take care.